engine we adore is a really useful engine, you know. 'Cause the fat controller, he told him so. Now he's got a punchline to call his very own. He's the really useful engine we adore. He's the one. He's the number one. Thomas the Tank Engine. He's the really useful engine we adore.
Dennis is a very friendly engine, but he's also a really lazy engine. And he mostly prefers to snooze all day in the warm sunshine and not doing any work. In fact, he usually asks other engines to do his work for him, which causes them to be late with their own work, which causes confusion and delay. And this makes the top hat very cross, but mostly at Dennis though, for being a really lazy engine. One day, Dennis was snoozing sleeping on a siding in Knapford Yard, just as Stafford rolled up in front of him. "Hello, Dennis," he said. "It's time to get up." Dennis opened his eyes and yawned. "Not right now, Stafford," he replied. "I'm tired. Maybe tomorrow, or maybe another day, I guess." "Come on, Dennis. There's no time to be lazy. So Topham Hatt doesn't like engines who are lazy on his railway here on Sodor." Dennis groaned as he and Stafford immediately got to work. As the day pressed on, all of the engines were working very hard. All of the engines, of course, except for Dennis, who was loading up at the barrel loader getting a train ready for Arthur. Dennis was so tired that he yawned and went back to sleep as soon as Arthur arrived for his train. A few minutes later, Arthur waited and waited, but still his train didn't turn up, as Dennis was still dozing by the barrel loader, until Percy puffed up behind him and blew his whistle loudly. "Ah!" cried Dennis. "Well, what's going on?" "You're in my way, Dennis," huffed Percy. "And Arthur is waiting for you with his train." "Really? Am I?" "Oh, yeah, I forgot." "I sure do apologize, Percy. I'll get out of your way." By the time Arthur's train was ready, he left 5 minutes late. "I wonder what happened," thought Arthur to himself. "I thought Dennis learned his lesson about not being a really lazy engine." Later on, Dennis was loading up some coal cars for Edward for Wellsford Station for a coal delivery there. But as he filled the last truck up, once again, Dennis yawned and went back to sleep. As soon as Edward arrived, "Dennis," he whistled. Dennis jolted awake and shot forward with the coal cars in front of him. "Dennis," called Edward, "where are you going?" Then there was a huge crash. Dennis had shoved Edward's coal cars into Donald, who was leaving the siding with a goods train. And they almost collided with the water tower where Douglas is filling up on water. Donald was cross. "Dennis, watch where you're going, you silly diesel." "Sorry." Edward's whistle scared me. "Is everyone okay?" asked Edward as he puffed up. "I'll go get the breakdown train." That night, Sir Topham Hatt spoke severely to Dennis. "I don't know what's gone into you, Dennis," he said, "but it looks like you're now reverted back to your lazy ways. Here on my railway, my engines work hard, and laziness isn't allowed. But I'll be giving you another chance tomorrow, so you better shape up, or else you won't be staying here for much longer." And with that, he drove away. Dennis felt ashamed. The next day, Dennis was still in the lazy mood as he rolled up and coupled up to some tankers. Donald, Douglas, and Edward soon noticed this. "Dennis," asked Edward, Why have you been so lazy these past couple of days? I thought you learned how to be a really useful engine. Well, replied Dennis wearily, it's kind of a long story to explain, but if you excuse me, I got work to do. And Dennis rolled away with the tankers. What are we gonna do? Asked Arthur. He's back to his lazy ways again. Maybe someone needs to show him how to be a really useful engine a second time, replied Donald. Aye, agreed Douglas, and we can help him. Arthur and Edward looked at each other and smiled. They thought this was a great idea. In Napper Yard, as Dennis was getting a freight train ready, Edward pulled up in front of him by the water tower. Dennis, wake up! Huh? What? There's no time for some shut-eye. You got work to do like everybody else. Oh, right. Thanks, Edward. So for the rest of the day, every time Dennis snoozes off, Edward, Arthur, Donald, and Douglas reminded him until he got used to it. Pretty soon, Dennis was mostly seen working in Knapford Yard all day and didn't stop for a snooze at all. By sunset, Dennis was very tired, but he was proud of all the work he has accomplished, all thanks to his friends. You did great, Dennis, said Edward. We're very proud. Dennis smiled. And it's all thanks to you, he said. If it weren't for you, Sir Tom Hob might have sent me away from Sodor. No problem, replied Arthur. That's what friends are for. And we'll always be there for you too, added Donald. Aye, and other engines too, agreed Douglas. And Dennis had to agree, feeling very happy to have his friends by his side.